Hello, Dave. How are you?
Very well, Joe. Thank you. Good to be back.
Good to be back. Well, folks, last week we covered registered letters and we were focusing about people's rights and the power of a registered letter. And we were focusing that week on schools and masks, but there was a lot of other information in there as well about your rights and the spoken word. Um, since the last conversation, I've done my own little research, and I'm even reading what certain words mean, especially in the Black Laws Dictionary as well. Which if you jump online, you can get lots of information about that, especially in Europe and the States. But I'm still not sure if they use that book here, but the wording of it would still be the same. So Dave is with us again this week, and we want to sort of focus on, what are your rights? If someone is pressurizing you to do something, how do you act? And it's really also what brings up from this conversation is what we're reading in the papers regarding our teachers, our nurses, and our doctors who are being pressured into, what would I say? They're being pressured to get, a vaccine, or being pressured into doing stuff against their own sovereign right. So I've asked Dave on to maybe have a chat with us about this. So, Dave, hi.
Hi, how you doing? Okay, so just to share a few insights, and this is really important stuff. And again, this is back to the principles that our rights are innumerable. We can't write them down. We can't count them. They're inalienable to us. You can't give them away. Somebody else might construe that you give them away, but you really can't give away your rights. Okay, you might be coerced, I think is a good word to use.
Yeah.
You might feel pressurized, but fundamentally, it's up to you to relinquish them. All right, you're not going to give them away, but you might relinquish them. All right, so I'm really here to try and share this perspective with you in a number of ways that you can protect yourself, to stand up for yourself, to just show yourself in your best possible light, to not let yourself down, really. And I think if we have a society of people that don't let ourselves down, then we as individuals are more robust, we're stronger, we're the highest possible version of ourselves, and we can look after other people better because we see ourselves in a better light. We see that we all have a duty of care towards each other and a responsibility towards each other. That responsibility is empowered through asking questions. Asking questions on the record. So I'm just going to give you a hypothetical situation if I can, Joe, and we can maybe run with it from there.
Yeah, far ahead.
Okay, so imagine David is in a job, JLB, just over broke, and he has a mortgage and he wants to look after his family. And he's signed a contract maybe about 2 years back, and he might be working in the medical profession, or he might be working in education, or he might be even on Garda Síochána, or, another role such as that, a state position, a semi-state position. And communication comes down saying that it's now policy and it's required of this individual, David, to go and get a medical procedure. David doesn't really feel like he needs to get a medical procedure because he doesn't feel ill, doesn't really have any interest in them. He kind of takes very good care of himself. But yes, this communication has come down from a superior. So, what does David do? Because, David has a duty of care towards his family. He has a duty of care towards himself, a duty of care towards his colleagues, but he also likes his job. So, he's in a bit of a conundrum. So what can David do? First of all, I just want to flag a couple of things. I'm going to just throw these out in quick succession, if that's all right. And we can explode these out. And you might just kind of keep these in mind as we go.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd be very interested in understanding who has issued the delegated letter of authority, okay? So who's got that authority to request of me that I need to do something? Somebody says to you, you must do something. Well then, Joe, you must come to my party next week. So must doesn't mean you have to do anything, folks. It's an imperative, right? You really must come to my party. Failure to do so may mean you miss out on the fun, right? So it doesn't actually have any force of law behind it. So that's colour law. The delegated authority letter means that somebody's given an instruction, has to be signed off on, okay, by human hand, folks, and you want to see the original of that. You might also want to understand where the specific provision in your contract supersedes Bunrock na Heron, because there's a lot of your rights which are recognised but not listed in total in Bunrock na Heron. You may also want to understand in relation to the internal company policies what actually construes harassment, because you might consider this harassment. If you break down that word harassment, harassment, so harassing your mind, harassing your thinking, okay? You may also consider, I'm not saying that you can play this way, whatever way you want to, folks. You might also consider it microbullying, okay? Because somebody said to you, you have to do something, and you may feel pressurized. You know, there was a time when we said, don't stand, you know, we stand up with the bullies, or, you know, don't listen to what other people say, think for yourself. You might also want to actually see their kind of license in relation to operating in a specific way. Now, these are all just very nice ways of reasserting your rights. I would suggest to you in relation to if somebody is really sort of pushing hard down you to go down a certain route of action, to look at asking them for a copy, not only of their delegated letter of authority, but also of their insurance to act in a certain manner. Because if somebody's trying to compel you to do something against your will, then that's not your act. And if somebody's compelling you to do something against your will, then it's that person who's liable, and that person needs to have coverage, okay? They need to actually be covered in case of harm, loss, or injury. So these are all just ways that you can kind of assert your sovereign authority and your right to ask questions, all right? Or you might ask them for specific training given to them in relation to this instruction, right? So not only have they given an instruction, and you want to see the delegated letter of authority, well, they have to be trained, right? Okay, because, you know, everybody needs training these days, health and safety training in the workplace, you know, best practice principles, standard operating procedures. There's many ways we can go with this, Joe. So I'll just kind of park it there. I think there's a lot of stuff for people to unpack, and we can kind of explode any one of these out as you like.
There is a lot of information there, and, you know, some people might kind of go, okay, may feel a bit overwhelmed. So start from the beginning. Whatever, David, whatever direction you want to go on this, we're here to facilitate and for you to educate us. So whatever route you want to go.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, so look, there's a lot there, okay, and I acknowledge that, and you don't have to do it all, folks. You know, I'm really giving you the kind of the span from 1 to 10 there on ways you can go. If somebody is instructing me to do something, a very nice way to put it is that an order or a request? And if somebody says to you, it's an order, well, did you make them the boss of you? Okay, and you just with respect say, look, is that an order or request? And they're going to say, look, it's a request, right? Most people are going to say it's a request. You have the right to say request denied. You actually have that right, okay? And it's kind of slightly funny that we're actually at the stage of society where we actually have to say that, but you can actually deny a request, folks. If somebody orders something from you, I want you to think about that word very carefully. If they've ordered you to do something, then they're imposing their will on you. And if somebody orders something of you, that's actually, believe it or not, it's actually a commercial transaction, right? So you actually have the right to give them a bill. And you would actually have the right to actually say, look, okay, I'd like that order in writing, and I'll consider it. That's another way you can do it. So when somebody gives you an order, you can also request you can also request their delegated letter of authority. You can request their training to give you an order in that regard. You can ask for a copy of the contract, which gives them the authority to order you around, which doesn't exist. If this seems like puts in nervous territory in your role and you don't want to cause trouble, which is understandable, by the way, because most people are meek and very conscientious, you can just ask for the safety studies in relation to order or direction. All right, because you've a duty of care towards yourself and your duty of care towards your boss. So perhaps your line manager is saying that it is policy that you need to receive a specific treatment or wear a mask in your workplace. Well, then you are entitled to send a registered letter to the person who's trying to roll that out to ask for the specific validated safety studies in relation to the same. So there's a lot I could kind of do with this, Joe. So, you know, we can kind of, I think that's kind of a little introduction for people, you know, with kind of baby steps. I would always ask people to provide the delegated letter of authority. I think that's very important, okay? And you ask for it respectfully, okay? Because essentially you're saying, look, listen, I came into this job with an understanding that this would be my roles, my responsibilities and duties. And now somebody appears to be trying to change the contract on me, but I haven't signed a new contract. The old contract still stands. The old terms of employment still stands. And somebody appears to be changing it on me. So I'd like to understand when that actually, I'd like to get more information on who made that determination about me. I'd like to get a copy of all the information pertaining to my new alleged circumstances of employment. Asking questions as a sovereign authority are very, very important. And if somebody tries to direct me to do something, I'd always ask them for the rationale, the criteria, or the rubric around saying.
When you say the difference between an order or a request, and you're saying that an order is a transaction, and let's go in the corporate world where an order is a transaction, could you then say to that person, after looking at everything, going, okay, I accept this order, but here is my bill, and my bill is €1 million. Can someone do that as part of that order? Or are we totally way off the mark?
Oh, you could do it. And you know what, Joe? You're about as crazy as the person trying to get you to do something without your consent.
Yeah. And that's why I'm sort of saying it, is saying for me to complete this order, this is my time charge for this, and the bill for that is, 100,000, whatever.
And to tease this out a little bit more, Joe, we all know the maxim, right? Time is money, right? The principle time is money. To even consider this, and I'm not saying to you that you have to think this way, but you can have fun with this information as well, folks. To even consider this request and do my due diligence around it, there could be a cost associated with it. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that, listen to me, folks, if the whole world did this tomorrow, right, we wouldn't have a functioning society, right? But this is just a nice way to uphold your rights, okay?
But going back then and looking at the contract, what we've realised, these people who are involved, as you would say, they are civil servants because they're paid by the state, doctors, nurses, teachers. Their biggest fear is job loss. And we've seen that, what was going on with the nurses. Well, if you don't do this, you won't get a place. So that's discrimination as well.
Yeah, I would actually say to you, Joe, right, in my opinion, and just to share this perspective, and I know it for a lot of start, so apologies about that, but the passion was just coming through.
Yeah.
You have to remember, folks, this is a duty of care position, okay? So if you are the underling in an organization, right, you have the duty of care towards your organization, and your organization has a duty of care towards you. And that goes for everybody up the food chain in that organization. If somebody at the top or the apex of that pyramid comes out with a diktat that says you have to do something, if I haven't met that person before, they don't know the particulars of myself, my life, my religious, my spiritual, my physical being, or any ailments I have, to say to them, for them to say to me that I must do something, right? Okay. That not only is high-handed in the normal sense of the term, right? Okay, it's ignorant. Okay, they are actually ignorant of my needs as an individual. And let's extend this a little bit further. It's actually harassment. They are actually harassing my mind. Harassment. They're actually taking away my peace of mind in my workplace, which I am entitled to have. And by virtue of the fact that they are using their position to push something on me, it could be construed as microbullying. And microbullying is a very serious thing. It is actually using your position or the color of authority of your position to compel other people to a certain course of action. So I'd be very mindful about this. Anybody feels that they're being pushed in a certain direction, this is actually microbullying. This is the definition of microbullying, folks. And I would encourage anybody to look into this for themselves. Hopefully that's okay for you, Joe.
What's coming up for me is declaring your own independence as well as your God-given freedom to make those decisions and look after yourself, popping into my mind as you're saying that.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just your perspective, and it really is just about the individual and the bodily integrity. Can I just flag something here? And it might seem a bit left center, but I will say this. So I'd like to read something to you from Bunrock na Herne, okay? And this is primary law for the 26 county state. And it's Article 40. And it's you can look this up yourself. It's called fundamental rights. Okay, it's not fundamental property rights. It's fundamental rights. And it's the dwelling of every citizen is inviolable and shall not be forcibly entered save in accordance with law. Now, I'm going to read it again for a second. The dwelling of every citizen is inviolable and shall not be forcibly entered save in accordance with law. Now, most people, when they hear that, at best, they might go, dwelling? Is that the home? You know, is that where I'm living? And almost, okay, the dwelling is not your residential address, folks. Okay. Tell me, right, where do you live? If you're walking in the woods, Joe, where does Joe live?
On the land.
On the land, okay. Where does the intellect of Joe Dalton live?
In the mind.
In the mind, okay. And in the mind, okay. And what's the physical expression of that mind?
Thought.
Speaking. If I was to see you on the street, what would I recognize as Joe Dalton?
The body.
So the calling is your name, Joe Dalton. Okay. The dwelling, where you physically dwell as a sovereign being under God, under the Creator, is the body. So I'm going to read this back out to you now. So the dwelling of every citizen, I'm going to say this to you now, the dwelling of every citizen is inviolable and shall not be forcibly entered save in accordance with law. Now, if people understand the ramifications of that, people would not be concerned about mandatory vaccination.
Yes, because the dwelling is the body, is you, is the spiritual aspect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Incredibly powerful.
Cannot be entered.
Cannot be forcibly entered, save in accordance with law.
It's one of the reasons why I understand that, you know, I'm just going to go off track here. The Bible, there is so many hidden messages and meanings within the Bible, like the Our Father is a prayer to basically put a stamp on something. And it's not about, we're not talking Christianity, or we're talking about God here. We're talking about sovereign beings, that everything comes from a spiritual connection. And what's going on in the world at the moment, they're trying to pull us away from that spiritual connection and really get us to focus on state. State is your master. The state is your master. The government is your master. And no longer should you use spiritual connection, God-given right. I should not listen to that. That's what's really going on here at the moment. That's what my opinion is. And the more I get into this, the more I'm understanding it. Would I be right in saying that, Dave?
I would agree. And this is probably what they say, live in the world, but be not of the world. You know, this is why I live on the earth, you know, I don't live in the world. So the world is something that you create.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, because essentially what happens is, and just to kind of break this down to people, and if you take away the belief system and the belief in a higher authority, or somehow that you're good, that fundamentally at your center, at your core, that you're good, well, then you need to be told what to do. Okay. And then you are the plaything of outside sources. You're like a ship without a rudder, okay? And you're going to get thrown around from storm to storm. So if you have a belief in a higher authority, in God, that fundamentally you're good at your core, then like a keel of a ship, it's going to keep it balanced. And then you're going to have your rudder, and you're going to be able to go direct where you need to go, no matter how bad the weather gets. So to use that analogy a little bit further, that's why we use the word at sea. And that's what I want people at sea, right? You know, not knowing what to believe. If you take away the higher authority, then perhaps you have the remnants of your family history behind you. You know, even the word history, his story. So, you know, it's passed from generation to generation. If you take that away from people, if you break up the family, if you try and fracture them, then it's just the individual, the citizen, effectively dependent upon the state.
I know, yeah.
And that's very important that people are mindful about that you know, that's a relationship that doesn't really work out too well for the individual.
Let's jump back there and focus on, you know, your rights to do with the contract and you being a sovereign being, as you say, the dwelling. And thanks for that, because I was looking at the Constitution there. And for me, the dwelling was always just where I live, but it's not. Very smart people wrote these.
Oh, absolutely.
Very, very smart people wrote this. And I honestly believe the people that wrote it as well were getting ha-ha moments, but very, very smart people wrote this.
Oh, incredibly smart. Incredibly smart. And I think De Valera even had a role to Damascus moment with this as well. And he tried to make amends, and he hid stuff in here as well. It's just, there's a lot to it. There's an awful lot to it. I might try to pull it back here if I'm in work and I'm under pressure, right? Like a kind of a plan of action, if that's okay. So I'll kind of start. So just to get back to the point, if I'm in work and somebody was trying to compel me to do something, first thing I do is I'd probably just send an email just to my direct line manager requesting all documentation relating to the proposed policy safety studies. I'll supply documentation to follow up with this, Joe.
So we'll have a template for this.
I'll give a template. I'll get a template done this week for you. If I was in work and somebody was trying to inform me to do something or direct me to do something, the first thing I do is probably send an email to my direct line superior requesting all peer-reviewed longitudinal and latitudinal studies related to their direction. I would then specifically ask them for their delegated letter of authority. I probably might do this in registered letter, but I'll map these out for everybody who's listening. I would ask for information in relation to the bullying policy of the company or the organization that I work for. Okay. And I'd probably CC HR on that email. We're ramping things up now as we go here, folks. Okay. I would probably ask them for the specific provision or specifics of that policy that supersedes bun rocking or heroin. Okay, and then Article 40, Article 40.5 that I'll get into at a later date. I would ask them for the specific training that are given to them that allows them to convey this information without having workplace safety studies undertaken, because they've given out the information. They mightn't have workplace safety studies in place. They're the ones going out on a limb here. Okay, so for them to come out and say something that's actually those individuals who are saying it as if they were the arbiters of truth. So, you'd like to think that they were given specific training, because otherwise they're the ones that are on the hook for this. I might ask for a copy of their public liability insurance relating to same, and for a copy of their peer-reviewed, completed, validated longitudinal and latitudinal studies providing safety of same. Okay, which means that it has to be completed, which we know they're not completed at the moment. I think that's enough really for people to kind of digest. And as I said, I'll have this on a document for people to implement. I would also ask for a copy I would consider asking for a copy of the contract between the two individuals. If, for example, Joe is the head of the health service executive, we know somebody else is, but if Joe was at the head of the health service executives, I would also perhaps send a registered letter to Joe saying, please forward me a copy of the contract between ourselves. Because there's no contract. That person is the chief medical officer or the executive officer, and he's only directing the functions of the office. Okay, so there is no contract. They're trying to say to you, look, it's a policy, the health service executive. But that's not law.
The other day I was reading as well, when you're talking about chief medical officer, like they're all military terms as well.
Absolutely, yeah, and you can fire them. You can actually fire these people.
Yeah. And what about the person that's going, it's great, but they have that fear that you go into employment, you're meant to have a contract. 90% of people don't have contracts. They were told they get one, but they never did. And if they sort of say, act against this, and they go, oh, look, here's your contract, and their contract then suddenly has appeared, and in it is a review every 8 months or a year. And they're basically saying, oh, you're a troublemaker, so I'm going to get you to sign this contract now. How do you act on that? It's the fear that people have, and this is what they're using. It's a bullying tactic, micro bullying to get people into it. How do people act on that?
Well, anything that if you said to me I had to sign something, okay, so yeah, your signature is very powerful, and if somebody said to me you had to sign something, well, I'd probably sign it, and this is just to be mindful about this, and I will cover this in the document. you'd sign it by BY, and you put in a semicolon and you write your name, right? Which is essentially conditional acceptance on the document. So you can conditionally accept stuff and you can review it at a later date. Or you can just be happy with the contract as it stands. You have to remember, folks, that this system here, you actually hold all the aces. Okay? There's no law that says that you have to sign it. There is no law that says that you have to sign anything. Okay? You can go away and you can review a contract for as long as you want. And if they decide they have to let you go, well, then you can sue, because they've got absolutely no evidence that you've actually been a troublesome employee. All right. The onus of proof will be on them. All right. Now, I'm really going to worst case scenario here, folks.
Yeah, I know that. It's of interest, and this is all very, it's educational and it's really interesting as well. So that's why I'm just touching the different bases at it.
And you're right. You are right. Because we're human beings, folks. Okay. And like these are genuine concerns. And people go into fear mode faster than they go into assertive mode. Right. And that's how we've been trained. If you really have concerns about this, you could send an email to your boss before you have these kind of meetings. And you say, look, boss, how's it going? Just checking in with you. Just want to see if there's anything better that I can do in relation to my role. You're happy with all my work? And you can get that response on the record. Get them reply to it on the record. Send you an email back. Then you have correspondence from your boss saying, David, you're doing a great job. Really happy with you. Yeah, no, really, really great. They will respond to you, folks. Okay, just especially if it's a casual email saying, "Is there anything else you're looking for me to do this week? Looking for a little bit extra work. Can I help you with that?" And you'll generally get a nice email back. That response is on the record now, right? So this is how you build up a body of evidence pretty quickly if you needed to say that you're a diligent and an excellent employee. But everybody in the public service has a annual review. And that is a thing, and that information is there. It's on the record. It's published. You have a right to reply. You won't lose your job, folks. The fear of this stuff is really the greatest inhibitor around all this. But you're only asking questions. You're not refusing. I wouldn't refuse. I'd never refuse, Joe. I wouldn't refuse. No, Joe. Just for the sake of the discussion. All right, Joe. So just as a hypothetical,
yep.
Do you want to imagine that you're my superior and you want to tell me to do something, that the policies just come in, and we might just do this as a little workshop for people on the air?
Okay, Dave. So, Dave, with what's going on at the moment, I would like you to get the vaccine to continue on working here.
Okay, Joe. Thanks for sharing that with me. Do you mind if I ask? I'm very happy here, Joe. Right? Do you mind if I ask? Who's we?
We, as in the company itself.
Around this time, have you got a pen and paper there? I just want to write this down, Joe, if you don't mind. So, sorry, we, the company?
Yes, the company. The board of directors.
Do you mind if I ask, was this just for myself?
Oh, no, this is for everyone. We believe that there is a safety standard, especially with so many people being infected. As you probably listen to the news and you're listening to all the people that are passing away and all the people that are being infected. And the government is driving this concern, and we feel that it is for safety of everyone within the organization. We're requesting everybody to consider getting the vaccine.
So it's a request, is it? Or is it an order, Joe?
It would be a request.
It would be a request, all right. But
if the request is denied, we'll probably be looking at it as an order within the coming months.
Okay, so let me get this right. So you're requesting I do something, and then it could be an order. And does that direction coming from somebody else, Joe? Just so I'm clear on this, there's no problem. We're just having a friendly chat.
Yeah, it's the board. It's the board of management. It's come down from the board of management.
All right. Did they publish that or something? Can I read that somewhere?
No, but it will be available in the coming weeks, because that's what they'll say. They'll say it will be available in the coming weeks. We're just drawing that up now, but I'm just giving you a heads up.
All right, because just let me get this right, because you know yourself, I'm very happy here, and I love the work, Joe. And you're a great boss. But I recall signing no such contract.
No, there was no. But as you know, that sometimes within an organization things change. If we were giving you a pay rise, you'd be delighted to take the pay rise without signing a contract. So, what's the difference in this when we are looking at the safety of everyone within the organization as well? We have to consider that.
So, sorry, Joe, just go across. So you're asking me what the difference is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, that's no problem. I can tell you. The difference is, Joe, it's a private family matter.
Okay. And why do you feel that it's a private family matter?
Well, it's a private family matter, Joe.
Explain that to me. I don't understand.
No, it's actually it's private. You getting it, are you?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
People listen to the first episode that we did. Words have power.
Yeah.
And it's a game of sparring. And that's why even in court, they try to confuse a person into an order or making a decision. So you have to sort of go in you have to be very calm and collective.
Yeah.
When doing this. And we said it in the last episode as well. Think before you speak. So you are actually choosing your train of thought.
Absolutely. And again, folks, this is all just about privacy. It really is. Like that private family matter, by its very inference, private is private unless you make it public, right? So if you're not a public servant, and even if you are a public servant, you have a private component to your life. A family, constitutionally protected, and matter is nebulous. And so I don't have the right. If somebody said to me something's private, you want to be a very rude person to push it a couple of times. And you've no right, you've no jurisdiction, you've no authority to ask any further about that.
But if the person goes right private, I understand that. And then he said, well, look, here's the choice. And he may say, look, here's the choice off record. You may need to get this done, or it could affect your job.
Around this time, Joe, if this was me in the real world, I'd be writing all this down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I would absolutely have a pen and paper beside me. If somebody had the audacity to say that to me, I would immediately send them an email afterwards, just going, thanks for the talk. Really appreciate it. I understand your position. Just so I'm crystal clear in this, you said this. Is that correct?
But that's what they're saying. This is the pressure that's happening.
Yeah.
Let's look at what's going on with the student nurses at the moment. This is what's happening to them.
Mm.
But what is it if a government kind of go, affect this, and they put it into law that it's mandatory?
They can't.
They can't, which I understand that. But if they did, you can still go as a sovereign human being, this is me. But then look at the other aspect of it. What is it when they say, well, okay, I agree, which they're doing at the moment, but you can't go into this shop, or you can't go into the cinema, or you can't go into this.
They're trying to do that. They're trying to get people to acquiesce.
Yes.
Okay, right? You can't give up your rights, folks, okay? The whole system, even if it's most fundamentally corrupt, still needs you to consent. This is the key fundamental thing here. This is why sovereignty, your think, talk, do, what you think, what you say, and how you act are so important, because everybody else is in the system of paper.
Sorry, David, I just need to cut over here. This is what's coming up for me. They're creating the system and they're giving it to the businesses and hoping they will implement it. That's
absolutely.
That's it.
It's a silent corporate coup d'etat.
Yes.
Okay. They can't have jurisdiction over the people, so they try and get jurisdiction over the fictional entities.
Two things what just resonate with me is leadership. And we know from speaking to people within the communities, we know there is a huge issue at the moment with leadership and people wanting to be better leaders. And this is what this is all resonating with. What would you define as leadership? And it's strange. What does that word mean?
Okay. So the leader, I'm going to use a couple of different analogies here if I can. So even break that word down into two kind of components there, leader and ship. Okay. Or think of citizen and ship, right? So, you are literally, you are master of your own destiny. Okay. Your own vessel, your own body with leadership, right? Okay. The leader is the most important person in an organization, but we can all be leaders. You are the leader of yourself, your own fate, right? We haven't thought about this stuff. There's no money in everybody having autonomy, and being able to ask questions. We don't have leaders in this country, okay? So this is a key point. We might have political leaders, okay? But even if you were to break down the word politics, okay, you're just talking about many parasites. Poly, more than 4, ticks, bloodsuckers, all right? So even the word politics is loaded with euphemisms and second meanings. If they were true leaders, okay, they would be trying to elevate people in their thinking, in their abilities, but instead they're trying to suppress people. They're trying to use fear. So that isn't a sign of a hallmark of a true leader, okay? So, you don't listen to people like that, okay? You step away from people like that in a classroom environment. They'll be regarded as bullies or using psychological behavior against other people. So true leadership comes from within. It comes from listening to your own voice. It comes from listening to a higher authority than what somebody else is trying to regurgitate towards you and telling you how you have to act in a certain way. Okay, it comes from within. In relation to leadership, it's not about taking advantage of other people. It's actually looking out for the weakest in society. It's actually being proud of your position and having good intent towards people. I think we've lost our way because we're actually looking at the wrong people for leadership, to be honest, Joe.
Yeah.
I think the symptom is people being fearful, but the root cause is looking at the wrong people in charge.
And just the last one as well, this letter that seems to be going out to the schools from the HSC, and a word that's non-threatening. One of the words, it has your child being sick or whatever, but it's not using the word schools, it's using the words educational facilities. And that's a bit of a red flag as well. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, see, words are weapons, essentially. Okay, there's like a Swiss Army knife, Joe. You can use them for good or for evil. Okay, but in this instance here, I'd be concerned about the word educational facility, because technically a gulag or a prison can be an educational facility. And what is the nature of a facility, right? So if you think of facilities management, even that's somebody who's there to sort of control the operation on a day-to-day. The word education, right, comes from educare, okay, which means to elicit, to draw out from. Where, so what are they trying to draw out from people? We're not using it in its proper kind of sense anymore. So I would really suggest people be very mindful about what you're signing. Or if you sign something, demand that it be destroyed under GDPR legislation. You can have fun with this stuff as well, Joe. I certainly wouldn't be actively signing anything that has a third party, or an open-ended signature, right? I wouldn't be signing something before somebody else signed it. I'd be considering my position, or better still, if you feel that you need to send something into a school and your child has been off ill for any reason, send your own letter in. Don't sign their paperwork.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and make sure you have put the school on it. Dave, just going back to the original conversation, have we left anything out?
Probably, because there's a lot to cover. But I would like to say that anybody who feels under pressure, okay, that's in your mind, okay? That is not in the real world, folks, okay? And you need to step outside yourself, and you need to realize that you're actually, it's a psychological sleight of hand that's actually taking place here, that you feel that you're the person under pressure. You are not, okay? You're putting yourself under pressure. The way you release that pressure is by taking action. And the best way to take action is just by asking some polite questions on the record. You have a God-given right to ask as many questions as you want to your satisfaction, which means that you can continue to be asking questions and gaining information around medical interventions procedures until this time next year or beyond, if you so deem it fit and necessary. Once the questions are valid and once you're trying to get to, and once the intention is good. So don't think that by asking questions you're a troublemaker. In fact, I would say quite the opposite. And I'd say that the person who's mindful of their rights, who's asking questions, are actually here to protect everybody. And I'll just probably finish it up on that, Joe.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. That was David, folks. I've had some conversations with David over the last couple of weeks, and it's mind-blowing, the information that he is sharing and what we will be sharing within this series. You know, have a pen and paper ready each week, take notes, because you are going to be equipped with tools that you never thought that you'd have before in your life to prepare yourself for what's coming down the road. And this season is to help you. There's a lot of time and a lot of effort that goes into this. You know, you may see that we're on for a period of time, but there's a lot of research and a lot of work that goes on after it as well. So look, keep on listening, keep on helping out and helping people around you. It's all about just helping your neighbors and helping your community. So until next week, take care and God bless. God bless.